If you're doing everything in your business, then it's not really a business. The point of a business is to scale and grow. And the only way to do that is to let it go. We're going to talk about delegation in this podcast.
Hi, welcome back to Blunt Force Business. I'm Brian LaFauci.
And I'm Patrick Marino.
And today we're going to talk to you about let it go. Let it go.
Let it go. Let it go. It's one of our favorite Blunt Force facts.
It is our favorite Blunt Force facts. Delegation. Do you know what one of the problems is with business ownership? Is it always starts with somebody saying, I'm going to do this thing I like, and I'm going to find a way to make money at it. And so
that might not be the problem. That might be what starting a business is.
Yes,
for the most part.
But to the point of today's conversation, how it gets to what we're going to talk about today is because it goes from, all right, I need now this to supplement my income. So everything I do has to be streamlined, like the $0 startup podcast we did. And then what does it mean? It means that all the tasks become my responsibility. And then we grow, and then we start to then we find ourselves in this role where we own everything. In the optimal world, I would love every business to start up with the owner having another job and taking every single task as a delegation.
You want me to comment on that?
That's just my take. In a perfect world, to start something scalable, you would never rely on its income. And you would build the whole thing out as the way you would want to run it when it's doing X amount a year.
Is that the main driver for people not delegating, you think, is money? Probably one of the main...
100%.
I think there's two main drivers for lack of delegation. One is money.
Yes.
And two is trust.
Well,
I think money and trust are the two. Because I think that the thing that drives a lot of the idea, right? So you've got really two types of entrepreneurs. You've got the serial entrepreneurs jumping on an opportunity where at no point do they think they're the one that's going to be able to do the job. They're just like, I'm jumping on an opportunity. I see this as an opportunity to make some money. I'm going to invest in it or start it, and it's automatically going to be handed off to somebody, right? It's like I'm starting a restaurant. If I'm doing a good job of that, I'm hiring a good restaurant manager, and I'm not doing anything except, hiring, firing, making sure I find the right people, that kind of thing. Unless I'm the cook, right? If I'm the cook, then I'm starting the restaurant because I think I'm the one who can make the food. But now, there's only so much I can make, right? It's like, how much food can I make? How much food can I cook? You know what I mean? And then if the restaurant gets busy, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to be in there every freaking minute of the day? How do we get to the next point? How do we get a second location, right? And it's there's really the two types of entrepreneurs. But I do think it comes down to, at that point, if you're the typical business owner who's like, I want to make money doing what I do well, or what I can do that is worth making money over, then it's either I don't want to part with that money that I'm making because I need it.
Well, because there's a reason for that, though. Because human nature, everybody spends to their...
Or more.
Right. So if you make $100,000 a year, you spend to that lifestyle. If you then build your business and you're making $200,000, you spend to that lifestyle. Are there people who can manage that well? Yes, but they're the anomalies.
Right.
Most people do. So why is it so tough for people? Because then they get to that point, and to grow and to delegate and to do what we're going to talk about today, you have to forgo the income. You have to give it to someone else. You have to now take pennies on the dollar because you're right, as opposed to dollar on the dollar. And what does it do? In the mind of the owner, it now there's only two things to take from, the business or them, and more than likely it would mean cutting them back. And people struggle with that because they might have already bought the house on the $200,000 a year income.
Yep.
They might have already bought the car, right? Or leased the car on the, so all of that shit's built. It's why professional athletes go broke.
Right.
I mean, it's
well,
the
being
same
a professional athlete isn't the business, right? And it's like, that's kind of like what we're talking about here is like, if you decide you're going to start, one of our famous things we talk about frequently is like starting a landscaping business, and you're the one who does all the work as the landscaper, right? Like I know how to measure. I know how to square off the edging. This is the reason I decided to go into this business because I do it better than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's not really a business. The more it's dependent on you, the more it's not really a business. The more it's just something that you do to make money. It's a business if it can kind of just exist without you. Now, maybe it's one thing that you're good at, and this is where I think you and I differentiate our skill set. Well, it's one thing I respect. I shouldn't say that. It's one thing I respect about you is like, as you've grown your one strategy business, like I've watched, I'm observant, I'm not an idiot. But at no point have you ever been like, it's just you. You've always been like, I want to showcase this. I want to showcase that. Like you've always built in, you've been, as you've developed the business, you've always been hiring. Like I've even disagreed with some of the stuff that you've hired, right? I'm like, why are you doing this, Brian? Like this is not going to, but you've always done that. You've always like decided I'm going to invest in this. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to invest in somebody to do it at every step. And that makes your business more sustainable in so many different ways.
But there's risk and pain in it.
There's risk and pain, right? So it's like, you told me a story when we were at the coffee shop a couple weeks ago, how there was some risk and pain in what you were doing because you were spending so much money on other people and you weren't doing, you put yourself out there, right? So but that's the only way to scale. Like I have a business owner I work with right now who is really struggling to scale because if the phone rings, he's the closer. It's his business.
Mm-hmm.
And he has not been able to have anybody else take on that role. So when we increase, I'm the marketing guy, when we increase the marketing and the leads start coming in,
it increases the workload for him.
It's not just increases the workload. He feels like the marketing isn't working because they're not closing because it's either he's not answering the phone or somebody else is doing it and they're not able to do what he's doing. Right. So it's like, well, then it's not a business yet. It can only be a business if we can repeat that process of bringing in new customers.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he's never going to get past the point where it's like there's 24 hours in a day. Mm-hmm. He's got to sleep during part of that time. Mm-hmm. Right. So if he's not sleeping, he can't just be answering the phone the other 18 hours, so it's like, all right, well, or if two people call simultaneously, what are you going to do? So you can't scale. You can't possibly scale. It can't be down to one person.
Right.
There has to be, you have to delegate something. Right. And if it is landscaping, and the reason why you are a good landscaper is because of your attention to a detail in certain areas, then you have to do, again, something that you're very good at, Brian LaFauci, develop a process so that someone else can do it, right? If you're McDonald's, you're developing the process of making the burger faster. You develop the assembly line process, and now it's repeatable, and now it's a business because you can scale it. You can take it, you can do it in another region. We're going to do it here. We're going to do it there. You take this process that we've created, you take your handbook that you've created for your school entrepreneurship program, and you just hire the right people to run it. And Brian doesn't have to do it anymore, right? You're in charge of the company. It's your baby, but you don't have to be there. Someone else can be there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but that it has to get to that point. Otherwise it's not a business.
It is hard because, and even with the example you just gave, when the entrepreneurship program that we did in the schools, I feel very fortunate because that one I knew I wanted to develop and scale that way. That one I was like, even when we got the pilot money for that, and it was literally 2 schools, I could have done the whole thing, right? It wasn't like, it would have been 3 hours out of my week. I could have done the whole thing. I could have kept all the money, right? But I knew, like, all right, if we do this and it's going to scale, I can't teach really any of it, which is not really true because I do teach some of it.
But I mean, like you, even just you going through this process of this conversation, you're forward thinking already.
Yeah.
Like you've thought this through. And like it's a good example because like literally there are only so many hours during the day where that program can run. It can't run during the day for the most part at most schools because they're in the middle of class. So it's like, there's going to be only certain hours that this program can run. And so therefore it can only run once a day at that school. Like, and then a lot of the schools are going to have the same hours that they can do it. So you're not going to literally be able to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like you wouldn't be able to, you would do the landscaper thing. Like you only do so many lawns.
Yeah, exactly. But at least landscaping, I could do Joe's lawn from 11 to 1.
Yeah.
I can go down the road. I can make it work.
Go till 8 o'clock at night.
There's going to be some things where you can't really do that because here's the 3 hours.
Yep.
3 of the 6 after school hours we can run this program, or that's it. We can't do that more. Like even just the way that you talk through it, a lot of people don't talk through it that way.
Yeah. And so for our listeners, I think how do you get there? Because if for our listeners, they're in 1 or 2 camps right now.
I've put myself in the camp that you described. And I did that. It's personal circumstances. Like I was on a scaling path. 2 things happened to me: the pandemic and a failed marriage,
which is always a financial.
Those
setback.
2 things both set back. So like I had people working for me. I got rid of them when all this money stopped coming in because of the shutdown, and I never brought them back.
Yeah,
and I doubled my expenses. So I decided I got to keep all this money.
Right.
And then since then, it's been very difficult to scale because I haven't been able to do what I should have done in the first place when I was building the business, which is building in the scale. Like, how do you build in scale? A lot of it is delegation.
Yeah.
Finding people, repeating processes. Where do you, like that kind of that part of it.
And all of us are going to have moments like that where, if same thing, you take any of the stuff that we're doing, there's timing to all of it, right? So there's more, the conversation of how we got here was more so like recognizing how we get in this position sometimes, which makes sense because in the beginning, there was man and there was woman. And then in the beginning, there was, I just went to the Bible for a second, whatever. So in the beginning, there was like, all right, I'm growing this thing. I'm keeping all the cat. That makes sense. Like, I'm not going to pretend like the $0 startup isn't a good option. It is. It's just then being able to think like, all right, how do I protect myself? Because like our listeners are in a couple camps. They're either listening to this, like thinking about how they're going to launch, and maybe we're giving them a different pathway to launch.
It's obviously really good if you're doing a Brian LaFauci process where you are building this into your plan.
Yeah, if you can launch this way, because you'll live on, one thing the pandemic did to me personally was it allowed me to realize what I realistically needed to live, because we had that indoor sport complex and that was completely shut down. So I could take no money in. So I had to, adjust salary, like do all that. And then I come out of it, and I'm like, all right, well, I lived just fine. Like life went on, and so it made me a little more comfortable in not having to take all the money up front and delaying it a little bit, right? Because at the end, you can get out of the dollar for hour trade, where now as things grow for my company and we make more revenue, I'm not going from like 50 to 80 hours a week or something like that to make that happen. I can stay in the space and it grows, right? But so one, you can build it that way from the start and have your revenue projections be that way. And then the other group of people might be sitting there saying, well, I'm already up and running this way. How do I pivot it?
Yeah, that's the harder part.
Yeah, and it is. And so a lot of times that pivot involves a reevaluation of your financial growth and just being able to say, all right, I'm going to have to sit here for like a year or two and not take any extra money, or maybe slow what I'm taking in to start to develop that, to develop these other things. And like
it doesn't always have to be like in the case that I brought up, yes. But like, and sometimes it's like I said, it's not like there's the 2, right? It's not just the money, it's the trust, right? It's like, as a business owner, if you want to have an actual business that grows, you have to trust. And generally speaking, when you trust somebody else, especially when you're the owner, there's more failure, because that person that you're trusting to do it doesn't know it as well as you do, and they're not as invested in it and care about it as much as you do, right? And sometimes you're going to be harder on them than you would be on yourself sometimes, right? Because it's like, that's, it's like if I make the mistake, that's one thing. I had control over it. I screwed it up. It's another thing if I gave it to you and you screwed it up. Like, maybe you did a better job all over the place than I would do, but you screwed up the one thing, and it's just like, oh my God, I freaking hired you to do this, and you can't do that. Like, that's like in the case I brought up about the sales, like ultimately he's going to have to give up closing every deal, because otherwise there's only going to be so many deals that can be closed.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, a part of it is not just giving up the money. I think a lot of it is, you've got to develop a system, and you've got to be able to say, that's the blunt force fact, is to let it go. You gotta let it go.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to trust that you have done the work ahead of time. You've developed the processes. You've hired the right person. Right. Some of the process could be automation too. Right? So that's my, a lot of the sales process is like, what can we do without the salesperson? And that's what you see in a lot of businesses, like, especially with like customer support. They've offloaded a lot to AI.
Right.
Why? It's because they know that there's going to be a certain number of questions that can be just answered like that. So why are we hiring somebody to do that? And then that frees up these people to take on bigger challenges, right? And so we can do better. Now we can scale, right? So it's like, how much of the sales process can we automate? Can we do the whole thing without a person? If we can do that, that's great. Is there a point where we have to intervene with the person? It's like, hey, we've almost closed it. That person dropped off.
Right.
Now we give them a call.
Yeah.
Or can we keep automating it? Can we keep sending them emails, text messages, and then if they don't close, now do we give them? Like, so it's like, but you have to develop the processes and take yourself out of it. Because if you can't, what do they say? It's like, at some point you have to work on the business and not in the business in order for it to be a business.
Yeah. And that's where people have the biggest trouble. If they're in camp number 2 and they're up and running, the statement that I hear a million times is, I don't have the time to do that. I've been working with this one company for a long time, and they are hamstringed by their capacity. And they make product, right? But they have a lot of machines on the floor not running. And I just can't get them to see and it's a failure maybe on me, because I can't get them to see the long-term benefit of, hey, just for the next month, you need to maybe take every Friday morning and just work on hiring and training. And yeah, you might kick a little bit less out the door. But if you do the math, they're a profitable company. They make money. So at the end of the year, there's plenty of money there. So if you take 1 month, an average 40-hour work week, and I say, well, so that's 160 hours, right? I'm just asking 16 of those. So for that 1 month, if you're down 10% for that 1 month, you'll be fine for the year. That means you'll be down less than 1%. If you did the math, if you do the same thing you did last year, it's less than 1%. You'll be down, right? And you made, right? So, and you can't get them to, I just can't. I got the deadlines, delivery. I'm like, well, you got to plan.
You got to let it go.
You got to plan for the pain. Yeah. You tell the next customer that comes in, like, hey, just want to let you know we might run a week behind on this. They're not going to say no, right?
Yeah, we've talked about this before. It's like there's more, if you are doing a legitimately good job, your customers trust you more than you think sometimes.
Yeah.
That allows for price flexibility, timing flexibility, like those things that and that is like, that's the nightmare for this guy or this girl, is that they're so committed to the personal attention, the quality level, the timely delivery, and that's what part of their brand has become.
Yeah.
But it's not a business.
Yeah.
It's just like you doing something
Right.
good, right? How do you turn into a business? It can't just be you.
Right.
It's got to be somebody else. You have to be able to trust somebody else to be a part of it. Because otherwise there's only so much of you.
Mm-hmm.
You got to figure out how to take yourself out of it.
So
you got to let it go.
Yes. So let's
Should we do takeaways?
I'm going to give a couple of takeaways, and then you may have some to piggyback on. But one of the big takeaways for me is start with the thing that is a non-productive thing, but that has to happen.
Yeah.
Start there.
Mm-hmm.
And more than likely it'll be something you don't like
a lot of it's admin.
Yeah, doing some of the admin work or doing,
video editing.
Yeah,
audio editing.
Yep, doing some of the marketing work yourself or whatever it might be. Start with that and bucket that and say, okay, how many hours a week or a month am I spending doing this? I'm going to reclaim that. So how am I going to reclaim it? Well, I'm going to reclaim it by I'm going to give it somewhere. It's going to go somewhere. I'm going to either hire a contractor or a company, right? So it's going to maybe I can automate a little bit of it.
Well,
right?
Can we use automate?
Right. So maybe it's going to
especially some of the admin billing.
And what does that mean? Well, that means it's going to take me a little time to build the automations. So I need to just build that in, right? And just say, I got to build in 8 hours to get this thing up and running. So you're going to take the thing you like the least and you're going to say, you're going to list out all the options of where it can sit, right? It can sit with another outside company. It could sit with an employee. And you're just going to weigh them out. You make a sensible decision of it. And then you're going to say, this is the time I just reclaimed. And on your calendar, you're going to do the thing that during you're going to block in that much more time for revenue generating stuff. That's the key. Because as you start to replace these things, you need to then replace them with stuff that pays for them. So if let's say bring someone on board and I hire them for, 10 hours a week and it costs X. All right. So those 40 hours a month that I just offloaded cost me X. If I take those 10 hours a week and I'm like, oh, great, I'm just going to go golf, it will not do the thing you need it to do, right? So those 10 hours a week have to then become revenue, somehow tie back to revenue somehow with what you do. And then that system can just repeat itself. As if you're good at scheduling, then the scheduling ties into the act. And the way I like to manage it is, you make those lists of things that are going to go.
They use the 80-20 rule.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. So talk really quickly.
Well, no, you're gonna figure out the 20% of things that are revenue generating or important.
Yes.
And you're gonna make sure that you prioritize those.
Yes.
And then you're gonna try and figure out the other 80%, which are not revenue generating. And you figure out which things can we just get rid of and not do anymore.
Yes.
Which things can we automate and which things can we delegate.
So you want to try to spend 80% of your time on the 20% of the things that make you revenue. That's where the shift is trying to happen, right? And if you do that well, in most business models, it more than covers the cost of the other thing, right? Now, do you have to invest sometimes in people? And yes, sometimes you have to make that initial investment. And this is where, whether it's the investment in time or in money, this is where the existing business struggles because they are operating at their budget, not below it, right? So it's not there yet. It's not built in. So sometimes we have to spend a couple months to prep up for that and maybe make adjustments in spending so that we're kind of prepping to build it in. It's a process. And the reason why people don't get to it is because they look at the decision as, if I was to do this right now, I just can't do it. And then it stops. Then the process and the decision just stops.
Well, or how often is it rather than have someone else do it, which means I have to train the person.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they're not as good at as me.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to take their time, right? So I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Because it takes me less time to do it than to train that person, have them do it. Me have to go over it with my checklist.
Yeah.
Right? Like that amount of time takes so much time, I might as well do it. And that is the mind frame that you have to get out of.
Yes.
You got to get out of that, and you have to let it go.
Yep.
Right. And you have to say, I cannot, if I want this to be a business that scales and grows and is an actual business, I have to say, you do it, you own it.
Yeah.
And I have to just be okay with it.
And one of the other tricks that I use.
And then trust yourself that you're going to get better at processes and training.
Yeah. And then when something's broke, you fix the process. You don't take over the job.
Yeah.
The other trick that
I like the way that you said that.
Thanks. The other trick I like to use
Repeat that.
is when something's broke, you fix the process. Don't take over the job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Because it's very easy to say, I'll just fix it.
Yeah, I'll just do it because I can do it. But really,
I can fix that.
You have to get out of
that
that mind frame. Needs to stop.
Like Shannon said, you're going to take this thing home today. I said, no, I'm going to teach you how to do it here.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing, and my mindset wants to take that home, by the way, Shannon. Like everything about me is like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll do it. So the piece that helped me with that as well is I talk on a lot of our podcasts, I talk about work list. Like I do a work list for every week. I redo it every Friday. It makes sure I don't miss things, right? That it's where stuff gets documented when do delegate document comes up throughout the week. That's where it goes. It goes right to the work list. So I update every week. But what I started doing, and we talked about this on the call about a month ago, I started taking all the individuals that have work roles in our company, and I wrote their names on the left-hand side of that page. And so now when I write something on the right-hand side, I'm like, wait, that doesn't belong on my work list. It belongs here. And now I'm getting into this mindset where just 2 months ago, all those people were there, right? And I was not formally like looking at it like, here's what I'm going to push to them. That is completely within what they're doing anyways. Now, just by taking their names and putting it over there. So someone new in this game might just have one person there, right? Well, I hired this company to do my social media. All right. So that person's sitting there. Maybe every couple weeks when you throw something on that list, you're like, you know what? They could do that, right? And then maybe it becomes the admin person. And then you start looking and say, you know what? They can do that. And as you start doing that, now when I look at my weekly work list, I have 2 full pages of work getting done. And I'm not working any more hours. It's just equally spread out throughout the team. So we're way more productive. Our revenue is naturally going up and there's a delay. We talked about the delay. There was an investment period where revenue was not going up, where we were building up to it. So you have to prepare for that delay. But at the end of the day, the goal being, there'll be ups and downs, but hopefully the balance sheet trends up.
And obviously, if you can start out with this process, this idea that we're going to scale from the beginning, I'm going to always make sure I have that. If it's a money issue, I'm going to have the money aside so that I know that I'm not going to be able to do it all. I'm going to have to hire people. That's the money and trust. I think those are the two. Right. Those are the two things. But I think you have to start off with the concept that if you want it to be a business, it can't just be you. You have to be able to take yourself out. Can it exist without me? And then you have to figure out what things do I have to then do in order for that. You focus on the outcome. Okay, the outcome is the business, this thing that we do needs to be good.
Yep.
And purchasable.
Yep.
Without me. So how do you make that happen? And you have to figure out, work backwards, right? And it's like, okay, let's develop the SOPs.
Yep. Your
processes, right? Constant improvement. How do we evaluate? How do we fix? How do we, hire correctly? Find the right people to do it as well, because you're finding the people that can actually do the job, or can you train them up? Find people that find people. I think we're talking about, I don't know if we're going to do the hiring one soon. Like find people that have grit, find people that they can learn, who are going to be invested in it as much as possible. But you gotta let it go.
Let it go.
Gotta let it go.
Great stuff. Good one. I'm Brian LaFauci.
Patrick Marino.
Until next time.
Thank you.